I'm Marlon West from Walt Disney Animation Studios. I'm a visual effects supervisor there. Been there for 30 years. My main part of my career has been done doing special effects, but I've moved into visual effects supervising. Yeah, I'm thrilled to be sitting here with these talented folks and to be here with you all on a Sunday. So I am, as an animation person, we don't get a whole lot of like hype. And for most folks who aren't in front of the camera don't get a lot of hype in front. But so I'm going to bring these folks out as best I can, and I want you to give them some love as I call the names out. Is that cool? All right. So we're going to start off with one of my coworkers, who is most recently worked on Wish and Encanto, Raya the Last Dragon, Frozen 2, Olaf's Frozen Adventure. Started her career at DreamWorks, worked on Home, Penguins of Madagascar, and How to Train Your Dragon 2, among other things. Could you put your hands together for Griselda Sastrawinata-Lemay?
Thank you so much, Marlon. And my name is so impossibly long. That's why I go by Gris, because it's a lot easier.
The next person is a costume designer who has worked on Star is Born, Hateful Eight. This is a live-action concept artist who has worked on Star Trek Picard, Woman King, ASS, Yellowstone, 1923. Could you put your hands together for Maggie Chan? This brother was doing double duty today. He was just moderating another panel. But he's actually worked on Hunger Games, Mockingbird J, parts 1 and 2, Titans, Doom Patrol, The Boys, Creed 3, among other things. Could you put your hands together for Greg Hopwood? Lastly, but not least, we have a concept artist who has worked on A Star is Born, Hateful Eight, Django Unchained, Nightmare Alley, The Help. Ooh, let me start stepping through her stuff too. Titans, American Horror Story, among other things. Would you please put your hands together for Gina DeDomenico? All right, so I'm gonna just ask everybody to start. I'm going to start with Maggie here and just go down the table and we'll work all right. And could you tell us, about your journey to doing what you're doing a little bit, what you would like folks to know about you?
Sure.
A little origin story. There's a lot of comic book
my origin
imagery
story.
Up on stage.
I actually went to grad school for costume design and theater, and after that, I graduated and I went down to LA and I worked as a costume designer on a bunch of student films, AFI and Chapman, a lot of thesis films. And then I realized, oh my gosh, I'm never making any money. And so then I was like, oh, I guess I'll go back to the Bay Area with my family. And I worked for the Ritz-Carlton for a couple years. And then I moved back down once I got married. And then my friend was like, what are you doing with your life? Because I was working at a florist and I was just doing a bunch of like odd jobs. And then they're like, what are you doing? Why aren't you in costumes? And I was like, yeah, I'm kind of miserable, ain't I? So I basically decided to start from the bottom up, and I started off as a PA in the costume department, and eventually I'm here now as a concept artist, so that is how I started.
Cool, thanks. Gina?
I went to fashion design school at Parsons in New York City. I thought I wanted to be a fashion designer. So after I graduated, I decided I couldn't live in New York because it was crazy and so expensive. So I moved to LA and became a design assistant, and I absolutely did not gel with anybody in the fashion industry, which was something I had no idea, that it's not only choosing a career, but it's also choosing a group of people that that are your tribe, that you understand, that you can relate to, that look like you, and so there was more to finding a career that I discovered. So I did a year of design assistant work and decided, what am I going to do? I'm not happy. So I realized I could potentially do design for movies. So I found out that you have to be part of a union to be able to work. So I called the Costume Designers Guild, which I knew that was probably the right union for me because it was costume designers and I thought I wanted to be a designer. And they said that to get in was difficult, unless I could get in as an illustrator. And as an illustrator, it was just a portfolio. That's all I had to do. So I created a portfolio. I got in, which was simple, which is simple for everyone if you want to get in. And I never stopped working as a costume illustrator in those days. That's what we were called, not costume concept artist, which is now like more elevated. And that was my journey. That's how it started. I didn't know the job existed. It was like, well, what is this? So that's it.
My origin story is actually accounting, but life has a different plan for me. I went to Art Center College of Design, and I know I want to be an artist, but I didn't really know what field. And that was the time when I revisited a dream that I want to work for Disney. Because growing up, I absolutely love Sleeping Beauty and Cinderella, especially Briar Rose because he wears a gray dress. And my name is Gris, which means Griselda, and she's always been my princess. So when I was at Art Center, I did an internship at DreamWorks as academic PA intern, where I had to pay 3 units, and I earned my way up to bring Jeffrey Katzenberg Diet Coke caffeine-free with the good ice. So that myth is absolutely true. After I graduated, I want to go to Disney, but that didn't work out because the timing has just always been kind of tricky. I got into DreamWorks, which is absolutely incredible, and I love it over there. And I do concept art in visual development, mostly environment. And it was actually other art directors and production designers that see I have a talent in costume. So my first costume design was for Doris for Shrek 4. When she did the candy apples, she had to do a costume, and then all the waitresses that has to do costume, and the witches on Shrek 4. So that's my first taste of costume design. And I'm like, what? This is just absolutely amazing. And then for the second movie, for How to Train Your Dragon, they wanted help on how to design the costume for her because they don't really know how to age her up. So I got to design her costume, which is amazing. And then the next one was Me and My Shadow. I'm very sad the movie got canceled, but it was so fun to work on. And when I got to Disney, costume design is more of a thing. Even on Moana, I got to do a little bit, but I was mostly doing some concept art and illustration for graphic design illustration for the movie. On the second project, it was Olaf Frozen Adventure. That's where I got to design the costume. And I'm like, this is it. I found my people. I love working with Michael Giamo because costume design is his thing. Even back in the days on Pocahontas, he had a costume designer. They just don't call it a costume designer. He is a big fan of theater and musicals, and that's why you see the Frozen. You see definitely a lot of influence from musicals, live-action musicals. And then after that, I did a costume design for Ralph Breaks the Internet for the contemporary princess outfit. And then after that, I did Frozen 2. I became the lead costume designer for Anna, which is Anna is my princess. I just love her. And then I work a little bit on Raya and then on Encanto, and then now on Wish as the associate production designer, focusing on costume design.
Cool. Hi, everyone. Mine was a little bit backwards. I did some miscellaneous PA set work when I lived back in New York, and then I kind of pulled a connection with a family who owned a studio down in Georgia who like house the productions. So I asked, I was like, I will do anything. Do you need me to mop the floors? What do you need? I'll do it. So they offered me a role as one of the office secretaries. So I went there and got to see all the cool productions coming in and doing all the fun stuff, like from behind my desk in the glass window and staring out. And I helped someone move a box who ended up being the costume supervisor for Hunger Games Mockingjay, and was like, do you guys need anything? And they were like, yeah, sure, we need a PA. So I told my family friends, I was like, I'm sorry, I got another job, bye. And they were thrilled for me, and they were like, absolutely, you did it, go do it. So through being a PA, I found out what a costume concept artist did by seeing all the amazing work of all the other illustrators up on the wall, and I was like, that's what I want to do. That is what I'm going to go for. And Georgia is a right-to-work state, so you can, a certain amount of hours a week, you're allowed to participate in a union classification. So I got to do my first costume illustration on that job. I did Finnick O'Dare's wedding suit, and that was my first intro to it. And my friend was driving, so I got into the union in Georgia. I was setting up my life. I got a apartment in Georgia. Joined the union, I was ready to go, and my friend goes, hey, I gotta work on Pee Wee Herman in California. Would you drive across the country to get my car out there with me? And I was like, sure, yeah, no problem. Fly me back, and I'll do that with you. Ended up meeting one of the costume designers that I worked with in Georgia, who was working on one of the X-Men films, and went and just said hello, and she goes, hey, you know what, we need help organizing this stuff, these reference images. Could you help out today? I was like, sure, no problem. That turned into a couple days, and they were like, well, you know, we got a couple weeks of work. Do you want to stay here and do that? I was like, sure, absolutely, no problem, yeah. I never went back to Georgia, and I've been here ever since. I had a friend pack up my car, put it on a flatbed, my whole apartment, and ship it out here, because I just was very blessed and lucky to like keep getting job offers, because all the contacts as a PA I made in Georgia paid dividends. By the time I got out here, a few people knew me, so I just kind of hit the ground running, got into the union out here, and have been very luckily doing this job ever since. So it's pretty crazy.
Cool. Thanks, you all. So I hear a theme of like grit and hustle in all of these stories about, and also, you know, thinking you want to do something and not really landing the way you thought. Greg, we'll start on your side, Greg, and we work back this way. Sure. Can you talk a little bit about as an artist, as a creative person, as a storyteller, which is what we all are, about your philosophy, about how your approach to your craft and your art?
Sure, yeah. I mean, when it comes to, kind of talking about like that hustle is a huge part of our job. I have no shame in pulling that contact of getting into the industry, because get your foot in the door however you can, because it is your skill that keeps you here. If you do not have the skill when you get here, this industry will sometimes just kind of chew you up and spit you back out. So I have no qualms about how I got into the industry, because I've hustled and killed myself to stay here and protect the seat that I've got. But yeah, you have to hustle, you have to make the connections, you have to network and just do the best you can of navigating this very weird industry. But when it comes to like the costume conceptual design phase of things, if that's kind of what we're also talking about, I always try and set myself, I don't know who taught me, but it's when you're working on a character and you're kind of struggling with them, there's two ways that I kind of come at it that help ground me in them. It's one, either what kind of shoes would the character wear? That always puts me in the mindset of that person, what the rest of the outfit would dictate. And the other one is take your character shopping. You're going in a mall, what store would that character wander into? What within that store would be interesting to them? And that kind of helps you see the character and help you embody the character. So anytime I'm working on like costume design, character design, that's kind of those are the two tricks I kind of give myself to kind of fall into that, to the headspace of that character. So I don't know if that was about hustle or the creative process, but I tried to hit both of them, so.
Cool, thanks.
Of course.
I like that because it does take two parts, the hustling part and the skill part. For me, the philosophy that I always follow is so simple, but yet it's so difficult. It's not difficult because it's a lot. It's do good work and be nice. You do good work, so people will hire you, and you're nice, so people would want to work with you. It's that simple, right? But what is good work? Good work meaning you gotta, hone your skill. You gotta know your craft. You gotta know the basic. You gotta know your foundation. So you know how to break them. So you can create something new and create something fresh that no one has ever seen before. And then, I did not go to a fashion school, so I have to learn pattern making. So be curious. Be like, okay, you want to do costume? Got to learn this part. All right, let's do it. And be open and know that, it's a lot of hard work, and be realistic that, this is a lot of hard work. So do good work sounds very simple, but it takes a lot. And be nice, it's pretty self-explanatory.
Not always in Hollywood. You never know.
Well, sometimes things are simple, but not easy.
Yes.
People use those words interchangeably, but they're two words for a reason.
Complicated, yeah.
Yeah. Simple is not easy.
Yeah.
I think that if you ever worry about not being talented enough, that's only part of the puzzle. You could be unbelievably talented, but if nobody wants to work with you, or if you're kind of if you're no fun and you're no fun to have in the room, you're not going to get hired. It doesn't matter how brilliant you are. You could be the most brilliant illustrator in the world and you won't get hired. So I think there's a lot like kindness and being able to work with people and talent and being able to stay the long hours. But for me, on the other side, when I start a character, because I'm working a lot, I do a lot of superheroes now. I get the research, someone does the research for me, a lot of it, and then I have to figure out what the fans need to see. Because I was a comic reader, and when I see movies that come out with characters that are like close to me, that I grew up reading, they're my characters, if they're wearing different colors or a completely different outfit, because the designer wants to make it their own, no. I get really upset. And luckily I work with a designer that honors the fans. So not only do we have to figure out who this person is, but we do have to put a current twist on it. I mean, it can't be just the costume you see, especially because most of the women, everything's floating on them. Like there's nothing attached. It's all like little strips floating over their boobs, and so we've got to figure out how to update it, actually get it on a person, but honor the fans. And so that's a big deal for me.
But also quickly going back to being the most fun in the room, I worked in an office with Gina for how many, 3 years, maybe 4 years?
Yeah.
And she is the most fun person to work with, almost too much fun. They wanted to separate us because
They did.
we were laughing
did.
so much and
Yes.
it started affecting our work. We were having so much fun.
No, it started affecting people outside the room.
People were getting so angry because we were having fun and they were all sad and miserable. It was great. It was awesome.
Yeah, but we were drawing while we were laughing.
Yeah, no, our output was higher than most because we were having so much fun.
Yeah,
So
there.
that's having fun is crucial to good workflow.
Yeah.
For me, I'm a bit newer to the industry. Like, I'm sitting with titans in the industry, right? So I actually, I don't really have a good philosophy because I struggle with imposter syndrome a lot. So my thing was basically to just work as hard as I could to have an industry professional be like, oh, okay, she does good work. And then to me, then I feel like, oh, okay, I made it. So that's kind of my thing where I just work until I feel like, oh, okay, that person thinks I'm good enough, then maybe I am.
I gotta say, I've been 30 years at Walt Disney Animation Studios, 40 years in the game. I'm still afraid somebody's gonna find me out.
Yeah.
So the struggle is real, but
Yeah.
but you're not. Nobody at this table is an imposter.
Yeah.
Now,
Well, I do want to talk about how I actually work when I approach my work, because it was just more overall to do good work and be nice. But as far as doing the work itself, at the end of the day, it's all about storytelling. So knowing who the character is, understanding who they are, what time period that they're in, takes a lot, because knowing the time period and the location changes a lot for me, because then you know the type of fabric that you have to choose, the type of like dyes that's going to be there, and also what are the rules that's happening over there. And also we want to have characters, costume, and environment to live in the same world. So all that color theory, like we all have to take that into consideration. But at the end of the day, is storytelling. Who the character is. Is it a main character? Is it a side character? Is it a villain? Is it a crowd? And crowds, for me, is a huge undertaking. It is the unsung heroes, especially in animation, because you need to feel the world is existed and believable. As we know, nothing existed in animation. And then picking up the main color is like, okay, they gotta stand out from the crowd, but not too much. So, and they have to be identifiable, the silhouette and the shape. But at the end of the day, always falls back to storytelling, storytelling, storytelling.
You're explaining the reasons why I've always wanted to work and why I initially went out for animation when I was younger, and why I always wanted to work at a company like Pixar. Because that information is given. You guys create that world, you sit in it, and you live in it, and then you have that ability to navigate that world and pull from it. I was just joking in the other panel we were on that more recently I was given a prompt of, it was a low-budget superhero thing, but they go, and it wasn't with any studio, it was not with Marvel, but they go, we need a Black Widow suit, go. And I was just like, is there any information, gender, age, location, weather, culture, their background, give me anything? And they're just like, no, just make a suit. And you're like, okay, like fine. So
that is crazy.
I know. So
that
I
is bonkers.
thrive for like cultural information, region, weather, anything you can give me. So I'm jealous of that level of information you guys get. It's beautiful.
We're definitely very privileged in the studio. And on top of it, we also hire cultural consultants, so we can be very mindful.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah, so we can be very mindful of the culture that inspired us from. Like, I think Disney has done it for so long. Well, it's 100 years old, right? They got a lot of practice, and it's in-house. Everything is done in-house, so we definitely have extra perks because of it.
I'm so sorry to speak again, but you know what?
Go
I have to
ahead.
say, to Disney, I worked on a Marvel Disney show, and I don't know if I can say anything about the show. I'm looking at my friend who works at Marvel in the crowd. I don't want to get a dart to the neck. But there was a cultural consultant on that show, and they gave us the entire information, and being able to live in that world so I have to give Disney the props for that one. It seems like a running company thing that they really push for is the cultural accuracy of those areas. So I'll shut up.
Griselda and Greg, you both actually started talking about something that was going to be my next question anyway, so thank you. About how you approach storytelling through your work and helping create the character through the clothes and the costumes that they're wearing. So you've already touched on it. Gina and Maggie?
For me, I think I always go back to primary research, and I think that's not really stressed enough, I feel like, with a lot of like my younger artists, because it's like, oh, Google is so easy. I'll just like type in whatever culture and I'll just pick whatever from the Google images. But I really take the time, especially in grad school. I don't know if it's just like drilling it into you to go to the library, and then like making sure you're like fact checking and you're going to the websites, reading about the culture, trying to understand the time period, because each time period had like different materials. Sometimes, like especially during like World War I or World War II, there were times where like materials were very scarce, so it was hard to find certain things. And so stuff like that, I do a really deep dive, and I spend literally, like, I don't think anything that I even work on personally, everything that I work on personally, I spend like weeks. We don't really have that time of luxury in live action. But for my personal work, I really spend like weeks, if not months, like researching before I even put anything on paper, because I need to know the background, the time period, and just like, Griselda was saying, the storytelling aspect. I write a script out for all my characters before I start designing. I need to become the character's best friend. I need to live inside their head before I start drawing. So that's kind of what I do.
Cool, thank you.
When I get all the research, I feel like I start getting to know the character. And I need to know, so going granular, to do the pose means everything. The pose tells you who that character is, how they feel, if they're strong, if they're weak, where they are exactly in the script, too. Because I could be doing an illustration of someone who has just gone through something really traumatic. And it can't be like a happy pose, right? You have to really think about how this person is gonna look, and then you put the clothes on. I mean, the clothes come way after you embody the character. And then we have other rules, like we can't do like cool poses, because you have to see. My drawings are a map for every department. So my drawing has to be facing forward. So I have to embody, I've got to get a whole bunch of character, and I have to sell the illustration to the director and the producers, and at the same time make it look really good and embody all the emotion. So their facial expressions, everything really matters. And that's that.
Cool.
Posing is really,
Yeah.
really, really, really important. It's like, it's storytelling. It tells you what the character feeling, how the audience should know what the character is feeling. It's just that, I keep thinking, I'm like, man, what we do, it takes so much to go into one illustration. Everything that has to be considered takes so much. And also, on top of it, there's design principles, different one for different movies. Some for example, on Wish, that's all that I can think right now, sorry. I'm gonna keep talking about it. So on Wish, we have, the language is of verticality. So as much as vertical design that we can put in the costume, we will put it in there. And then the tricky part is that not everyone is thin. So how do you convey that design principle on someone that has a little bit of girth, which is fun challenge.
Cool. I am, so when I started in animation, it was all done on paper with, and Acme peg bars and things like that. It was pencils and things. And so the animation industry has changed quite a bit in the 4 decades I've been in. I started when I was 12. So there's some grown folks here as well. So I've just, and technology has probably changed a bit on you all too. Can you talk a little bit about how you've transitioned from one kind of maybe physical skill set to a digital one, or?
Can I take this one?
Yeah, go for it. You have the best one.
I just want to do this one real quick. I had an entire career on paper, using gouache and pencils. Oh my God, loading into a job was insane because I had all my paints, everything. And when they said, "Can I see it in red?" it was a whole nother day. Okay, good, no problem. I had to completely draw it again in red, which was a full day's work. Then I had my children, and I left for about 10 years, and I came back, and it was all, I say, men and their barbecues. It was all men illustrating on digital, what were these things? What are these things? I said it was men and barbecue.
The barbecue.
I could not understand what it was. So I was forced to, I had to go back to work, circumstances. And so I had to learn digital, and I really didn't want to, because I was already in my early 40s, and I thought, oh my God. So I took lessons and cried literally every day for a year, and then loved it. So the transition was hard, but doable. Laughing at me.
It's because I've been in a learning environment with you, and to continue.
I tried ZBrush, and he was next to me.
Yes, no, to continue, but to Gina's point, and I will talk her up for a second, is not only did she make that transition, she did it to the top of her industry. She works on some of the most massive superhero characters on shows like The Boys and Gen V. And to say that you had that transition and then did it so successfully is like an extra, just crazy, amazing way to go about it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to add to that how extra incredible Gina is. 3 children.
Oh.
I'm just gonna say that. 3 children.
that
All
is-
girls do with hormones.
That's another subject. How to
That is, it's brilliant. No, and as a man with their grill, is it their barbecue? Their barbecue, yeah. It's
No,
like
women don't barbecue. Do we barbecue?
I don't
We
barbecue.
right? The guy always goes out. Why? But it seemed like when I was in my first part of my career, it was all women. We were all painting. It felt so good. It was tactile. It was this beautiful thing. And then we came back,
And me.
and it was creatures and superheroes, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And these computers.
Well, it's crazy because things change so much. I was trained traditionally, and that's what I was gouache and watercolor, but I was very lucky in high school to have learned digital as a way to escape going to gym class. They made me do something, so I was like, computer art! So I was very lucky that by the time I came into this industry, it was in digital. So I was able to jump directly into this field while people were still transitioning into digital. And to take it farther, when things started switching to 3D, that's something I jumped on very quickly. And I think most recently, my Tim Drake Robin costume that's out, that illustration is fully 3D. It's fully sculpted, it's rendered in Keyshot, and all the parts I sculpted went straight to print to be fitted because it was done on the actor's body form. But being in that ZBrush class with Gina was maybe one of my most favorite experiences.
I
of
made
my
you go
life.
to that. I'm the reason why you know ZBrush.
It's one of the many, yes. But we were in that class. I'm going to tell the story. It shouldn't be told, but we were in that class. The class was about 8 hours long, and we had done a knife, a horse, and all this different stuff. And I had all of those things on my computer screen. I look over at Gina, bless your heart. There was a stick of butter, which was just a rectangle with rounded edges after 8 hours of being in this class.
I was having trouble with that
And,
butter.
and you were just having a meltdown, and I will never forget looking over at that screen and then at your face and just seeing the panic. And I love you so much, Gina. That was
I
amazing.
do believe you can do anything you put your mind to, anything, especially when you have no choice. The problem is, I had a choice when I was in that ZBrush class.
Yes.
I shut down, but when I had to learn Photoshop and I had no choice, I learned it.
Yeah, because
you know?
it's there's
had to.
technologies that come and you have to adapt to it, and then there's the ones that you can choose to. Your career is
Right.
skyrocketing without it, so it's not a requirement to jump into that 3D.
Right, thank you.
Gina's awesome.
I started in digital, and every time Photoshop got updated, I got very angry.
Yeah, some of us don't update.
It's personally offensive when they start moving things around.
And it crashes constantly. I also got my start actually traditionally, but then I think it was with you when I first met you, and you looked at my portfolio. She's like, "Yeah, we don't really do these kind of illustrations anymore." And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's what I just knew and was taught." And like it was all just gouache and watercolor, kind of more like fashion illustrations. And then I was like, "Oh, okay." And then my other friend, Daniel Lim, he was like, "Okay, here are some courses. You need to study these and learn." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And that's what I did. So
I don't know if you all have been tracking the fact that it's nice to be pleasant in the workplace and be badass and good, those two things. But these folks are showing up in each other's origin stories and careers a lot. And I know a lot of folks in this room are starting out in their careers, and your classmates, your homies that you work with are probably going to be people you're going to be rolling with for the rest of your life. So yes, let me just also chime in and say, don't be an asshole. Because Be good and don't be an asshole.
Yes.
Simple but not easy.
Yeah, and Marlon is actually one of the nicest person when I first joined Disney. He just showed up and he's like, "Hi, I'm Marlon," and I'm like, "I'm nobody."
Yeah, when you're working in our community, you know, it's like a small community of folks, and you go from studio to studio and project to project, and like, you know, Griselda and I work in that hat building, and we do several shows, and it pays to treat people like you're part of a community. At least I think so. I'm old-fashioned though. We kind of touched on this a little bit already, and but you know, this is a difficult industry to get in. It's a difficult industry to stay in. And what are some of the ways that we haven't maybe touched on already that that you've learned from your experience, or that you'd want these folks to know as far as to stay working and stay relevant? Because yeah, you clearly have not, none of you have been able to kind of just like sit back and chill.
I mean, Gina kind of touched on it in one of her previous answers, where at least in the costume world, I can only speak for our world because that's my experience, but having the skills to do costume illustrations, costume design, character design is only a small part of what we do. Working in the studio system has its own requirements of how to navigate changes, how to navigate big personalities, how to navigate budget, how to navigate short time frames. And then within our own department of costumes, there are a lot of personalities. There is a lot of union politics. There is a lot of internal politics, departmental politics. So in all of that chaos, being fun, being kind, being a part of the team is definitely such a huge part, but learning how to navigate big personalities and how you handle like conflict resolution and learning the world around you, learning that ecosystem and how to navigate inside of it, because I would say one of my best skill sets that I have is working with costume designers. Not even the skills, not even the drawing, not even the costume design part. It is the relationship of how to have a relationship with a designer, because their brain is in such a different area. They are running a department, they are dealing with budgets, they are dealing with a chaotic department, and they are coming to you for a reason. So you have to make that safe space, be able to adapt to their mind frame, speak their language, and figure out how to navigate this, accomplish that goal together. So that's kind of my big thing is that process, because then it's all the skills on the side on top of that. But that's kind of what has worked in my experience.
Thanks.
For me, Disney is a very interesting place, because when you get hired to Disney, it's not a guarantee that you go on a show. And different shows have their own different ecosystem and different type of leadership. And sometimes, you know, I don't always do costume. Like sometimes I do environment art, I do concept art. You know, so having different skill really helps me to move from one project to another. And on which I'm so incredibly lucky that I actually got to do all kind of part. So on top of doing costume designs, I also get to do concept design. I got to do illustration, character illustrations that's going to go in front of the book, and then some that goes all over Rosa. I got to do a color key, which is so fun. And then we also partner with Disney Consumer Product, which is another part that I'm like, this is just amazing. This is like the most amazing job in the world. And you know, and I also got to do an original gouache painting that we're doing. We're partnering with Disney Create 100, which is partnering with Make-A-Wish Foundation. And so a lot of different things. So having skills that is wide has helped me a lot at Disney.
Cool, thanks.
I want to say you guys have to volunteer. Like even just say you volunteered here, you'd meet a whole bunch of other artists. That's how we all know each other and how we all met ages ago, because when we were trying to get our foot in the door, we were volunteering. Also, you can never choose fear. That's like, I don't want to be up here. I'm terrified to be up here. Even at this part of my career, I'm trying to say yes all the time. You have to say yes, except when someone says, take these drugs. So I read this book called A Year of Yes. So it's, I read that book right before I learned Photoshop. And I said yes to everything. I said yes to volunteering at Comic-Con. I said yes to teaching at UCLA, even though I had no idea what I was doing. And I said yes to this one job, which was my first Photoshop job. And I knew I'd get fired, and I got fired after 3 days. But you have to keep saying yes. You can never choose fear, and you have to volunteer and be involved and go to every social event. Everyone. That's how you keep meeting everybody.
Networking was really big, I think, starting out. You just kind of, I'm very, very introverted, so it takes like a lot out of me to just be like bubbly and like, hey, how's it going? How's your day going? But aside from that, though, I really actually feel like versatility is really important. I think I struggled for a very long time not having a specific style. And it was always like, because my dad would be like, Maggie, you have a lot of knives, but none of them are sharp. And so I was like, way to go, Asian dad, right? So never proud of me for anything I do. But anyways, he's proud now.
So funny.
That's what my husband says. He's like, Maggie, you're a Swiss Army knife, okay? Just be okay with that. And so I think finally, last year, I was like, okay, I'm a Swiss Army knife. And that actually has brought me a lot of opportunities aside from being a part of the Costume Designers Guild, working in live action. Recently, I worked on a Lunar New Year calendar with Wells Fargo. And so that was really exciting for me because I got to work in print. So I have a lot of other opportunities that are present because I'm very, very versatile in my style. I don't have a style. So it's like, oh, okay, you want to draw anime? Okay, I can do that. Oh, you want hyperrealism? Okay, I'll do that. Or I'm not good with Nickelodeon stuff, but I can try. But yes.
Hey, thanks so much. I want to open it up for questions, but before I do that, I just want to, if there's like a piece of advice you all would give your younger selves that you would love to impart before we open up the mic for folks. And if not, because you've
For me, it's
touched on
to
a
be
lot.
kind to myself. Like, be kind to myself. Because I'm also like Gina, I don't say no. I say yes to everything. And then I'm overwhelmed. And I'm at the end of the day, I'm like crying. And I'm like, why am I so, like, why do I think I could do it all? Like, I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? And for me, just to be kind, it's okay. It's hard work. Of course, you're going to be exhausted.
I would say kind of learn your moral compass. That was kind of something that I've developed on the fly working in Hollywood and finding where my true North Star is, if that makes sense, or where true North is, and what my morals are and what I stand for. Because that quote of, if you stand for nothing, you fall for everything. And especially with everything that's going on with the unions and with AI, we're kind of gearing into this like fighting for what we have and what we believe in and what we think is right. So having that set of morals is really important to me, and having that true north has been, I wish I had developed it a little bit younger so I could stand for what I believed in, so yeah.
I think mine is time management. Like, I would take a job and it'd be like, okay, I get 8 hours of sleep tonight, and then I'd moonlight like another job, and I thought, okay, I have 5 hours, and then it became 4, and then 3, and I'm like, okay, I'm okay with 2 hours of sleep tonight. So time management would definitely be something I'd love to learn.
I think for me, it's being nice to yourself, knowing that art is literally a lifelong journey, and that you can't do everything perfectly and be amazing at everything. like from birth. It's always going to be a lifelong journey, and it's okay to struggle with it. But just know that things will be okay. It'll work out. If you practice every day, you make that dedication. Art is literally one of those things that you will see improvement, and just like exercising, you will see an improvement, and just remember that.
And
Super cool. You
I'm
all are
also
great.
going to throw it out. If you want to pursue a career in art, get into therapy very young. It just helps with everything. Get into therapy, everyone. It's wonderful.
I really appreciate you all keeping it 100% real up here. Thanks so much. There's a microphone over there against this wall. If folks want to line up and ask a question or two, make them good ones, because we only got like 10 minutes so left. Good ones. Thoughtful question. Oh, there's a line forming.
All right, hello. My name is Santiago. Thank you all for being here. We've talked about the sort of nature of navigating all of these other people. It's not just costume design that you're dealing with, but you're beholden to directors and all this sort of stuff. And there's different kinds of relationships and this kind of communication that we're having. And so what are the areas in which maybe you submit something and they're like, no, I don't like it. What are the areas where you feel comfortable in pushing back and being like, no, I do want to go with this? And what are the fights that maybe you know that you're not going to win?
I mean, this is interesting because me and Gina differ.
knew you were
I
taking
know.
this
Me and Gina differ very drastically on this opinion, because there is this mentality that we are hired to do a job by someone who is paying us, and you do whatever they ask. But then there's also this ideal that I try to strive by, is when I'm brought onto a project, you're hiring me for my skill set, my talent, and my passion as well. So if I believe in this project, if I believe in this character, if I believe in this design I'm working on, I am going to try and as gracefully and gently push and say, you know what, I think this is really cool. I'd love it if we tried to do this, but depends on the person, depends on the situation. Then there's the mentality of like, where do you want the couch? What do you want? I'll just do whatever you need me to, So it differs from person to person, project to project.
For me, I'm so realistic that I know that, hey, if this serves the directors, their story, their vision, then that's what I do. The only time that I will push back, if it's about cultural sensitivity, that's when I really push back. But about any design, I'm like, sure, you want me to do this? Sure, not a problem. On a travel costume, it has 127 design, no problem. That's okay. The goat on Wish has the most transformation of design. I'm like, sure, the story changes, not a problem. My way of dealing with it is that I do cat illustrations, and I do like my own personal illustration, and I post them on my Instagram. And if people put bad comments, I delete them, I block them. Do not give me any type of art direction on that one.
All right.
Thank you.
Of course.
Hello. My name is Sable, and I had a question about with the live action costuming. So what does the process look like from when you guys have the concept and it goes to the costumers? Like, are you still a part of that? Do you get a say of like where you might need to like cut corners if need be due to budget or anything of that sort? Like, what does that look like?
You're looking at me. I'm part of a team that actually takes the costume from the design, from the drawing to through the fittings and into like the final, which is rare. Usually, illustrators do the illustration and then it goes, and you're on to the next illustration. But I'm in fittings. I'm checking all the special effects, hard surfaces. They come in every week, and I make sure that everybody stays true to the design with the designer, because the illustration is the map, but it's not always clear as we make it, even though it has photorealism. Still, you see people, different people see different things. Like, there's not a seam there, or that's not a break, but my team, me, I go through to the end, but that's not everyone, right?
It's interesting though too, because the thing that sometimes people, when they get brought into like big DC or Marvel or Amazon style things, the thing to remember with that level of concept art is it's kind of an agreement and a plan between the designer and the studio. So a big part of bringing a concept artist in and working with a costume designer like Laura Jean Shannon, she wants to make sure that that contract is fulfilled in terms of this is what the studio has agreed to. Let's get all eyes on this to make sure this is what ends up on camera, because there's nothing scarier than everyone approving a costume and something else showing up on set.
Right.
So that has gotten a lot of designers I know fired before. So it's the people who are smart like LJ who want to make sure that all eyes are on making sure that that agreement is fulfilled. So I think it is a huge asset having your concept artist when it comes to specialty made stuff in fittings to help
the room,
fulfill
yeah.
that. Yeah, it's crucial.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Hello, this is a little tall. Hi, I'm Lael. I was wondering about the difference between costume design and character design, because I'm looking to go into live action character concept art, I guess. So things like Lord of the Rings, I really love, or sci-fi like Dune, something like that. And I'm a little confused because I feel like there's not as many resources for live action artists as there are for animation and gaming. And so I was just wondering about that difference and kind of how to get into character/costume design.
I'll take this one. It's actually costume concept artists, because character, we don't actually work with we're working with actors, right? And there's different unions within live action. So hair and makeup is a different department. Props is also a different department. So for costumes, it's only like we're only working with costumes. Usually what happens is the designer will let you know, like, oh, this is the actor that will be cast, and then, this is their body type and blah, 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 and then we just draw the costumes on top. But in terms of like resources, it's all networking. Unfortunately, I know that our field is very kind of like, I don't know, it's not really hidden. It's just like everybody's super friendly. If you reach out to them via DM on Instagram, we're more than happy to answer any of the questions that you might have. But it is a little bit more hidden. Like if you go onto the Costume Designers Guild, you might find more, their website, you might find more information there. But it is, it's quite different from games, animation, and then live action. It's a very, very different pipeline, just because of all the different unions that are involved on one body.
Okay. So basically with live action, it's considered character costume design.
No character. Costume concept art.
Concept design. There's
no
okay.
design.
Okay.
But yeah, it's very different because you have the head of the department, which is the costume designer, that dictates. Pretty much they'll read the script, they'll analyze everything, and then they will design the costumes. They might do a rough sketch for you, and so they need something that's ready for presentation to show the directors and producers what the costume will look like on a hyper-realistic presentation of how the actor is going to look for the show or film. So it's quite complicated a little bit, right? So if you guys want to add and jump in.
I don't know if that just.
Well, it's kind of like video game animation, live action, and because of the film industry and the unions, a lot of the specifics that go into character are kind of bifurcated into different classifications. So if you take it as simply as the neck up and the neck down, it's hair and makeup is neck up, costume is neck down. That's a very oversimplified version of it. But if you were to go to video games or animation, there would be no delineation between the two. So live action, to protect the individual jobs, the unions separate the classifications into different unions, into different classifications within each union. So it's just a difference of industry. Okay. So if you're looking in video games and animation, that's kind of all together in one that's more character. If you're looking into live action, it's more costume specific, hair and makeup specific.
Okay.
If that answers the question, right?
Animation is even simpler. Character and environment, they're all under one.
It's everything.
Okay, thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Maddie, and I was wondering, I know there was a lot of talk about transitioning from traditional to digital, and I think that's obviously something that we've seen across many fields of, or many sections of the illustration field. But I was wondering, within like costume design, if you ever find yourself going back to traditional mediums or techniques, or even having to physically construct costumes in some way to solve problems within the costume design world, either professionally or personally. I was just wondering if that had a place within costume design.
I make little pattern mock-up on Barbies just so I can figure it out. Wow. You know,
love that.
Because in animation, like, our job is actually like, we're the costume designers, we're the pattern maker. We also pick up the material, and you know, we adjust the colors. We kind of, you know, do it kind of all, and then hairstyle. And sometimes you have to figure out, oh, how does things being braided, and we just kind of figure it out as we go.
Cool, thank you. And in like live action, is that also something that occurs, or is it mostly for like animation?
Honestly, I don't think I could have ever been successful at what I do without taking classes on fabrics and life drawing, and I had to actually make clothes too. What class is that called? It's pattern making. Well, it was torture, but without it, I mean, you can't, like, if a designer says, I'm thinking a full skirt, you gotta know, is that gored? And then when she moves, how does that flow? Or how is it sewn together? You have to know how it's sewn together to be able to draw it and to be able to show it moving. So, and you know, we've got to do turnarounds. We've got to do front, side, back, and sometimes patterns. Yeah. So it's really important to have traditional. If I came in as a digital artist, like that's how I started, it's like, it does, everything is done for you almost, and you don't have to know. You're going to get in trouble. That's all. You have to have traditional training.
Yeah, I learned how to sew. I pick up sewing afterwards too. Not very good at it, but just enough to understand how things work.
Yeah.
The fabric material, how it moves, how it flows, that is so important. And in animation, we don't have that in real life. You know, everything like has to be put by a sim artist, so we work very closely with the sim artist to say, hey, you know, it needs to move certain ways. And also, the computer, they just want the fabric to move whatever the fabric wants to move. Yeah. And when you work with Michael Giamo, you have to have a very stylized fold. Like, we want folds that looks like in Sleeping Beauty. So, you know, sometimes we have to cheat a lot. Like on Wish, our biggest challenge is actually Asha's pin-up dress, you know, on the side, because how do we figure that out and to have like specific fold that stays exactly how we want it. That one was, oh my goodness.
And you have to know, is it wool or is it chiffon?
Yeah. Correct.
How does that lay?
Yes.
And you can't draw it if you don't know it.
Correct.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
I think that has to be our last question. I'm getting the bum's rush. So I'm going to thank you all for letting me ask you my questions and to hear fellowship with you. So thanks so much for this panel, and thank you all today. So
thanks, everyone.